I'm behind on the rent, I said, my voice shaking. But what if I gave you something better than money? She didn't flinch. What could you possibly offer me? She asked, her gaze unwavering. What would you do if you were asked to offer something better than money? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to see how this plays out. The apartment was cold, the kind of cold that creeps into your bones and doesn't let go. The kind of cold that happens when you've been staring at unpaid bills for too long. I sat on the couch, looking at the envelope in my hand like it held the answers to everything, answers I knew I'd never find. The clock on the wall ticked louder than usual, a constant reminder of what I was about to lose. Rent was due, again. I was behind, and the landlord, Jenna, was the last person I wanted to face. She had been kind at first, a breath of fresh air when I moved into this cramped one-bedroom on the outskirts of the city. But now, it felt like her patience was running out, and so was mine. The knock on the door startled me. I knew who it was before I even got up. Jenna's knock wasn't like anyone else's. It wasn't the polite, tentative tap of a visitor. No, hers was firm, as though the weight of her responsibility was being pushed through that knock, demanding an answer. I opened the door to find her standing there, arms crossed, her face a mask of calm. Her gaze flickered down to the stack of unopened envelopes on the coffee table, the ones with big, bold letters that screamed final notice. She didn't need to say a word. The silence spoke volumes. "You know what I'm here for," she said, her voice low but steady. I nodded. Of course I knew. The rent. It always came back to that. I swallowed hard, trying to find the right words. The truth? The truth was that I didn't have it. Not a cent. My job at the diner barely covered the basics. I had lost track of time, fallen behind on bills, and now here I was, staring at the consequences of my decisions. She sighed, clearly unimpressed by the silence. "I'm not running a charity, you know." I nodded again, too embarrassed to look her in the eye. She was right. She wasn't. I was the one who had failed. But what could I do? I had no family to lean on, no friends who could help. All I had was this tiny apartment, and even that was slipping away. "Jenna," I said finally, my voice shaky, "I don't have the money. I know you're angry, and you have every right to be." I stopped myself before I could say more, realizing that even the apology would sound hollow. "But what if I gave you something better?" Jenna raised an eyebrow, clearly not expecting that response. She took a step back, crossing her arms tighter over her chest. "Better than money?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper, yet there was a sharpness in it. "What could you possibly offer me?" The question hung in the air, thick with uncertainty. It was a gamble, but I didn't care. I had nothing to lose anymore. I took a step closer, the weight of my words settling in. "I don't have the rent, but I can offer you something more than money. Something different." Her lips parted in surprise, but she didn't interrupt. She waited for me to continue. "I know it's a crazy idea, but hear me out. I can offer you something that might be more valuable than rent, something that could change both of our lives." My heart pounded in my chest. I had no idea what I was saying. It was a last-ditch effort, but maybe, just maybe, it was the only shot I had left. Jenna's expression softened, but just barely. "I'm listening," she said, but the caution in her voice made it clear she wasn't convinced. I didn't have an answer. Not really. But I needed her to believe in something, anything, other than the fact that I had failed. What was the protagonist really offering? Was there something hidden beneath the surface of this better offer? I looked at her again, trying to find the right words. For the first time since we'd met, Jenna wasn't just the landlord. She was a person. A real person with her own doubts, her own questions. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't just fighting for rent, I was fighting for a future. Jenna's eyes narrowed, studying me, as if searching for the truth behind my words. Her gaze was unreadable. Then, without a word, she stepped back. "If you want me to believe in whatever it is you're offering, you'd better show me," she said quietly. "But let's be clear, this is your last chance." I stood there, watching her walk away. The door clicked shut behind her, and I felt the weight of her warning press on me. I didn't have money. But maybe, just maybe, I could offer her something better. But as I thought about it more, the idea began to take shape. If I could find a way to make her see it, everything could change. The rest of the day felt like I was walking through fog, my thoughts moving at a slow pace, like my feet were stuck in cement. I couldn't shake the look on Jenna's face when I said I could offer her something better. The way her brow furrowed, and those first few seconds of silence. I knew I had thrown something out there that didn't make sense, even to me. What could I offer her that was more valuable than rent? I had no idea. But I had to figure it out. Fast. Later that evening, I saw Jenna again. It was around 8 p.m., and I was sitting at the diner, wiping down the counter. The smell of coffee and grilled cheese filled the air, comforting yet heavy. The quiet buzz of the neon sign outside seemed to be the only thing keeping the place alive. She walked in, the bell above the door chiming softly as she stepped inside. She wasn't here for food, I knew that. She wasn't one to come in for a casual meal. She approached the counter, her heels clicking softly on the linoleum floor. I stood up, forcing myself to appear calm, though my pulse was pounding. "I've been thinking about what you said," she said, her voice steady, almost clinical. "You want to offer me something better than rent. I'm curious, what is it?" Her gaze was intense, searching. And there it was again, that expectation. She was waiting for something that could change this whole situation, something that would make her see me differently. I don't know," I admitted. "But I have to try. I'm not asking for a handout. I can't keep falling behind, but I need time to turn things around. I know you've seen people like me before, people who talk a big game but don't follow through." I paused. "But I'm not them." She studied me for a moment. There was something unreadable in her eyes. "You say you can turn it around. But how? What makes you think you can offer me anything more than an empty promise?" I had no immediate answer. The words caught in my throat. She was right. How could I offer her anything that mattered when I barely had anything to offer myself? But her words, her challenge, they weren't just about rent anymore. I wasn't just fighting for money. I was fighting for more than that, for dignity, for a chance, for something that could change everything. Have you ever had to promise something bigger than you could deliver? If you've been in a tough spot, drop a comment below. And make sure to subscribe. Things are about to get complicated. Jenna's eyes softened, but just barely. "You think a promise is going to solve your problems?" She shook her head. "I've seen too many people try that. They talk big, but they never deliver." Her words stung, but I had to admit, she wasn't wrong. How many times had I told myself things would get better? How many times had I failed to follow through? This was different, though. This time, I wasn't offering just words. I was offering something real, something that could matter. "I'm not like those other people," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "I've been running from my own failures for so long. But I've reached the point where I can't keep doing that. If I want a shot at making things right, I need your help. And I know you don't trust me, I get it. But I'm asking for a chance. Just one." Her gaze was still unwavering. She was listening, but it felt like she was holding something back, something that could shatter everything I was trying to build. Her face remained neutral, her walls high. "You're asking for more than a second chance, though," she said. "You're asking for me to believe in you when no one else does. That's a lot to ask." I felt the weight of her words like a boulder pressing on my chest. I wasn't just fighting for rent. I was asking for a belief in something better, something real. And in that moment, I realized that asking for a chance from her meant exposing myself completely, not just my financial problems, but my vulnerabilities, my deepest fears. Jenna didn't say anything for a long time. The silence between us felt like it stretched for hours, though it was only a few seconds. Then, slowly, she nodded. Not in agreement, but in acknowledgement. "I'll give you 1 month," she said finally. "But you'll have to show me something in that time. Something real. I'm not holding on to empty promises." My heart sank. A month? That was it? But it was better than nothing. "Thank you," I said, my voice thick with relief. But she was already turning to leave. As she reached for the door, she glanced over her shoulder. "Don't waste it," she added before walking out, leaving me with nothing but the hum of the diner and a heavy weight on my shoulders. What does the protagonist need to show Jenna in that month? Can they deliver on their promise, or will it all fall apart? I stared at the door for a moment, my thoughts racing. A month. That was the deadline. The clock was ticking, and I had no idea how I was going to make it work. But I had one shot. One chance to prove to Jenna, and to myself, that I was more than just my mistakes. But as the days passed, I realized something important. Sometimes, the hardest part isn't finding a solution. It's finding the courage to believe in yourself. The days seemed to blend into one another, each morning arriving too quickly, each night slipping away without me noticing. I barely had time to think before the next challenge hit me. But I had to keep going. I had to make it work, for me, for Jenna, for this chance. I kept to myself for most of that month. I worked more shifts at the diner, sometimes staying late into the night, scrubbing down tables and refilling ketchup bottles. My fingers ached, my back screamed from standing for hours on end. But every hour was one more step toward proving I could turn this around. But the weight of it all was starting to wear me down. I hadn't heard from Jenna since she gave me that 1-month ultimatum. The silence between us was deafening. Every time I saw her, I felt the pressure to be more than what I was. She wasn't just my landlord anymore. She was a symbol of everything I had to fix. Everything I had to prove. Then one evening, as I was getting off my shift at the diner, I saw her. She was standing outside, talking to a man I didn't recognize. He was dressed in a suit, looking far too polished for this part of town. I knew something was off the second I saw the look on her face. It was the first time I had seen her look unsure. She was usually so confident, so in control. But tonight, she looked like she was carrying a weight she didn't know how to handle. I walked over slowly, not wanting to interrupt, but unable to turn away. The man saw me first. He glanced at me, then back at Jenna, before offering a cold smile. Jenna turned, her face betraying a moment of surprise before she regained her composure. "Hey," I said, a little too loudly, as I stepped closer. I didn't mean to interrupt. I was heading home. Jenna turned to me, the smile on her lips forced. "Oh, it's okay really," she said, her tone a little too quick, a little too rehearsed. "This is a friend of mine. He's just here for some business." I nodded, but something in the air felt off. The man eyed me one more time before shaking Jenna's hand and leaving. As he walked away, I noticed Jenna's eyes linger on him for just a moment too long. Her fingers tightened around the strap of her purse as she turned back to face me. I didn't say anything at first. I wasn't sure what to say. But she seemed to sense my curiosity, and after a long pause, she spoke. "He's a real estate agent," she said, her voice quiet, almost hesitant. "He's been offering me a deal on some property. It's complicated." "Property?" I asked, confused. "What does that have to do with?" Her eyes flickered down to the ground. She swallowed hard. "It's an offer to buy the building. It's a good deal, but it feels like too much. I don't know what to do." The silence stretched between us again. I could feel the weight of the moment. She wasn't just talking about property. She was talking about everything. About her choices, her future, and the one thing she had been keeping from me. I was no stranger to doubt. I had spent my life questioning every decision I made, wondering if I was good enough, if I was capable. But this was something else. For a moment, I wanted to reach out to her, to say something comforting, but I wasn't sure what I could offer. "You've got a month to make it work, right?" she said, finally breaking the silence. "I don't want to rush you, but the clock's ticking. I just need to know you're serious about this." The words hit me hard. I was serious. But how serious was I really? I had a month to prove myself, to show Jenna that I was capable of something more. But in the back of my mind, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was running out of time. And with every passing day, the weight of my promise felt heavier. Have you ever found yourself doubting the promises you made? Or had someone make a promise to you that you didn't think they could keep? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe if you're curious to see where this all leads. The days kept slipping by, and with them, my hope started to feel like it was slipping too. I wasn't sure what to do next. Every time I thought I was on the right track, something seemed to pull me back. The diner shifts were never ending, my paycheck barely enough to cover groceries, let alone rent. And every time I looked at the clock, I was reminded of the promise I had to keep. I had to show Jenna something real. But what if there was nothing real left to show? Was this deal with the real estate agent a distraction for Jenna? Or was it something bigger? What was she hiding? But I couldn't let this slip away. Not now. Not after everything I had fought for. I pushed myself harder, threw myself deeper into work, into planning, into something. But no matter what I did, I couldn't escape the feeling that I was losing control. Every time I saw Jenna, it felt like the distance between us grew. And maybe it was because of the deal with the agent, or maybe it was because I wasn't enough to change things. But just as I thought everything was about to fall apart, something unexpected happened. Something that would change everything. The next few days were a blur. I kept telling myself I was on track, that things were falling into place. But deep down, I knew I was lying to myself. The diner was busier than usual. Every customer felt like a clock ticking louder in my ears. Jenna hadn't been by in a week. Not once. I texted her a couple of times, no reply. I tried calling, but she never picked up. It felt like she was slipping further away with each unanswered message, each ignored call. I couldn't blame her, though. I hadn't shown her anything that would make her trust me. I had a month to turn things around, and now I was halfway through that month with nothing to show for it. Then one night, as I was closing up the diner, Jenna walked in. I froze for a second when I saw her standing in the doorway. It was the first time I'd seen her in days, and she looked different. There was something about her, a distance in her eyes that wasn't there before. Her usual confidence was gone. She seemed smaller, almost fragile. I took a deep breath and wiped my hands on the dish towel. "Hey," I said, forcing a smile. "What's going on?" She didn't return the smile. She didn't even look at me. Instead, she walked straight to the counter and sat down, her fingers tapping lightly against the wood, a nervous habit I had never seen in her before. "I've been thinking," she said quietly, her eyes fixed on the counter. "About everything. The property deal, and you." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I didn't know what she was going to say, but I could already feel my heart start to race. "Jenna," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I can explain. I know I haven't done enough, but I'm trying. I'm trying so hard." She glanced up at me, her expression unreadable. "I know you're trying, but you don't understand. I can't keep waiting. I can't keep investing in someone who's not ready to take responsibility. Not for me, not for yourself." Her words cut deeper than I expected. I wasn't sure how to respond. Every part of me wanted to argue, to defend myself, but I knew it wouldn't help. She had already made up her mind. "I don't want to give up on you," I said, my voice shaking. "I want to show you that I can be better. That I can do this." She shook her head, slowly, like she was saying goodbye. "I don't know if I can believe you anymore," she said softly. "You've had plenty of time to prove yourself, and now I don't think I can wait any longer. I've already made my decision." There it was. The moment I had been dreading. I felt the weight of her words crash down on me, but I didn't know how to let them go. "I'm sorry," she added, her voice almost breaking. "I'm just tired." I didn't know what to say. My chest felt tight, my throat thick with unsaid words. The silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. I wanted to ask her to stay, to give me one more chance. But I couldn't bring myself to do it. She had already made her decision. And in some ways, I knew I had made mine too. I had failed. Not just her, but myself. "Jenna, wait," I said, before she could stand. "What are you really saying? Are you walking away from this?" Her eyes softened, but there was a sadness in them now that I couldn't ignore. "I'm not walking away from you. I'm walking away from this. From all the promises I made to myself that I've kept breaking." The words stung, but they were true. She wasn't walking away from me. She was walking away from the hope I had built up in her, a hope that was beginning to fade, even in my own heart. For a moment, I just stood there, rooted to the spot. I had no words left. She wasn't just giving up on me. She was giving up on us, on everything we might have had. And I had no one to blame but myself. Have you ever had to walk away from something you cared about because you knew it wasn't enough? Leave a comment if you've been in this situation. And subscribe if you're wondering if there's a chance for redemption in this story. I watched as she grabbed her purse and stood up, turning to leave. My heart pounded in my chest, but I couldn't move. She hesitated at the door. For a moment, it looked like she was going to say something more. But instead, she just shook her head and walked out, the door closing softly behind her. And just like that, everything felt like it was falling apart. Has Jenna really given up? Or is there a chance for the protagonist to redeem themselves? I stood there, staring at the door, unsure of what to do next. She was gone. And I had no idea what I was going to do to fix things. But as I stood there in the silence, something changed. Something that might just give me the chance I needed. But would it be enough to make her stay? The next morning, I woke up to the same noise. Cars honking outside, the faint hum of a siren in the distance. The world was moving on, like it always did, but it felt different. Like I wasn't part of it anymore. I hadn't slept much. I kept replaying Jenna's words in my head, over and over again. I can't wait anymore. I'm walking away from this. I wanted to blame her. But I couldn't. She had been right all along. I hadn't done enough. I hadn't changed enough. And now, she was gone. I threw on a jacket and headed out, the cold air stinging my face as I walked down the familiar streets. My feet seemed to move on their own, like they knew where I was going before I did. It wasn't until I reached the diner that I realized where I was. I'd been here every day for the last few years. It was the one constant in my life. But today, it felt like a ghost of what it had been. I opened the door, the familiar bell ringing overhead, and I saw her. Jenna. She was sitting at the counter, her back to me. Her hair was loose, a little disheveled, like she hadn't bothered to do anything to fix it. She looked like she was lost in thought. For a moment, I stood there, unsure of what to do. Was she really here? Or was I just imagining this whole thing? Then, she turned. And when she saw me, her face softened. "Hey," she said, her voice low. "I wasn't sure you'd come." I took a few steps forward, stopping just in front of her. "You didn't think I'd come?" She shook her head, a small sad smile tugging at her lips. "After everything. I didn't know if I could trust you." Her words stung, but there was something in her eyes, something I hadn't seen before. She wasn't angry. She was tired. Just like I was. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice almost cracking. "I'm sorry for everything. For not being the person you needed me to be. For not being enough." Jenna looked at me for a long moment, like she was trying to decide if I was serious, if I meant what I said. Finally, she spoke. "Do you want to know what really hurt?" she asked, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "It wasn't that you weren't enough. It was that you didn't believe you were." I opened my mouth to say something, but the words wouldn't come. I hadn't realized how much of what had happened wasn't just about the things I hadn't done, but the things I'd never believed I could do. "I wasn't just waiting for you to change," she continued. "I was waiting for you to see yourself the way I see you. The way I've always seen you." Her words hung in the air between us. They were simple, but they hit harder than anything I'd ever heard. "I'm scared, Jenna," I said, barely above a whisper. "I'm scared I'm not enough. I'm scared of failing." She smiled softly, reaching across the counter and taking my hand. "You're already enough. You just have to believe it." It was then, for the first time, I felt it, a shift. A real one. Like something inside me clicked into place. It wasn't about proving myself to her anymore. It wasn't about showing her I could be better. It was about showing myself I could be better. And that, maybe, was enough. Have you ever had someone see something in you that you couldn't see in yourself? Let me know in the comments. And if this story has been a journey you've connected with, don't forget to subscribe for more. There was a long pause, but this time, it wasn't heavy. It was warm, almost peaceful. I felt the weight of everything start to lift. It wasn't a perfect moment, nothing ever was, but it was real. Jenna stood up and moved around the counter. She didn't say anything at first, but she didn't need to. She just reached out, pulling me into a hug. I closed my eyes, letting myself feel the connection, feel her warmth. It was a small gesture, but it meant everything. "I know we can make this work," she whispered. For the first time in a long time, I believed her. I believed us. Was this the beginning of a new chapter? Or was it just a fleeting moment? I pulled back slightly, looking into her eyes. "I don't want to mess this up," I said, my voice full of resolve. "You won't," she replied softly. "Not if you keep believing in yourself." We stood there, just holding each other. The past month had been a whirlwind, but for the first time, I felt like I could breathe. And in that moment, I realized something. I wasn't just fighting for her anymore. I was fighting for me. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.